Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It is Thursday, July 31st, a little after 7 o'clock in the evening, and this is today's video covering YieldMax weekly paying funds, Ulti, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income Fund. Reminder, as always, I am on X at ETF_Inspector1. Follow me if you don't, and I let you know when videos are coming out, premiere times, in case you like to catch the first viewing and live chat with the rest of the community. I also post trades for other funds that I cover as well, and I'll repost things like the announcements for distributions for these funds. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Stock market was fairly mixed today. Ulti seemed to have a little more green than red, as opposed to LFGY that got beat up pretty good. I know I'm scrolling pretty fast, but I'm not really looking to talk to you too much from this page. This is kind of just to give you that basic information. You saw on the thumbnail, we got out of a couple of stocks that we literally just got into. One of them's highlighted and underlined, or not highlighted, but underlined and italicized, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Today was Dividend X day, so the funds were going to open lower by the amount of the distribution. Now, some people say, well, hey, how come sometimes it doesn't do that? It always does. It's just a matter of if trading and values cause it to increase so much you don't notice. But if you'll see, I believe we closed the previous day at 322, I think. 322, 622, or something right in around there, 619, 620. And then today we're at 614, but it's a positive, right? Because it takes the 10 cents off, and then wherever we go from that 10-cent drop is considered an increase or decrease. So we were up 2 cents. So technically, we closed yesterday at 622. We opened today at 612. Now, you might not have gotten a chance to buy at that because in the pre-market, people were already buying it up. I was trying to. But that's that explanation. Okay. So we go after hours to YieldMax's website. We download the intraday trades. We scroll all the way down till we get to Ulti. We had a little over 100 trades, I think, 115. And then we also go to LFGY, copy all those. I didn't look at the number, roughly 66 trades. But those don't tell us everything, right? You've got which stock it is, whether they were buying or selling, how many contracts and the shares, but then we put it on our spreadsheet. That way we can gather even more information. So we start off, we talked about lots of money came into the fund yesterday, so it got put to work, buying more shares of most of the stocks within the fund, with a couple exceptions. We sold our shares of Qualcomm, and we sold our shares of Meta. Meta basically made $4 to $5 million, where Qualcomm basically lost about $4.5 million. It resulted in a net positive of $670,000, not between those two, but I actually went back to our purchases of them. Since it was in the same week, I am going to consider that in our trading profit and loss. You see, we just bought these on the 29th, 2 days ago, Tuesday. So if we bought the stock and sold it all within the same week, it was a trade, right? We were playing around the earnings to try and make some quick money. So that's what we did. Generally, I don't include the buying or selling of shares within our options trading profit and loss, right? Because they're not options. And I don't want to count all these as losses of 12 million. That was just them putting money to work and buying stocks. So that's why I don't normally do it. But if we bought them and sold them all in the same week, I'm going to add that into our trading for this week. So $670,000 to the good got added, credit got added to our trading profit and loss. All right, but we just put all that money to work, buying more shares. We didn't add anything new to the fund. Then we go down. I've got them broken down by each of the individual. I call them underlyings because they're not all stocks. Sometimes they're funds within the fund. So AAOI, Applied Optoelectronics, closing out for next week and actually rolling down still within the same week, just because the share price dropped so much. And then also starting new option positions to go with the new shares that were just purchased resulted in a credit of $556,000. AppLovin closing out this week's, I believe, 375s and rolling to 420s next week, then going ahead and adding more to that position to go with the new shares that were just purchased, resulted in a $2.3 million debit or loss. Bitmine Immersion, this is just same thing with Webull, Coin, First Solar, and Galaxy. This is just starting the collar strategy to go along with the new shares that just got purchased today, collecting $412,000, $370,000, $56,000, $75,000, and $513,000. Robinhood, this is a roll, right? So closing out this week's position, rolling to next week, and rolling down as well, going from 113 to 108, collecting $750,000 for our troubles. Innodata, closing out. These are actually for the 15th, so we're talking 2 weeks from tomorrow, closing out and rolling still to the same date, but having to go up by $10 a share, resulted in an $8.2 million loss or debit. IonQ and Mara, this is just adding options to go with the new shares, collecting $169,000 and $161,000 respectively. Meta, we just closed it out and took a hit, right? Meta had a huge day, I believe, or did it? I think it went up even more in the. Oh, I already removed it. Yeah, so Meta had an absolute monster of a week, but I'm not sure. Yeah, this is just today. Sorry, I'm getting myself confused. So closing those out cost $2.6 million, those options, right? Because we had to buy to close those $700 or those 700 contracts at $750 when Meta went to $773. MicroStrategy selling new options to go with the new shares, $71,000 credit. Nebius is closing out for this week, rolling to next week, but we had to roll up and out because the price went beyond our calls, so $977,000 loss or debit. Oklo, same thing, closing out for this week, rolling to next week, having to roll up by $11 a share, cost us 2.8, almost $2.9 million. Qualcomm, this is closing out the, so this wasn't just closing out, and here's the reason why I did the strike through on Qualcomm, but then I also underlined it and italicized it. We're not actually done trading Qualcomm. We just sold our shares. So you'll see we closed out. We started out by closing out. Are they 170s, right? And then no. We closed out. Yep, 170s. We sold 157.50s right here. Then we closed those 157.50s. So we collected 57 cents, then paid 12 cents to close them. So that was a nice little intraday trade, made us around 140,000. And then they went ahead and started another position, just a call spread, where they sold 150s for next week and purchased 155s for next week. Then they also sold 145s and purchased 140s. puts. So these are puts. So they started a call spread up here, selling 150s, buying 155s. And then they also started a put spread where they sold the 145s and bought 150s. So they are trading that in a pretty tight range. I don't know if that's a iron condor or a strangle or what, but they've basically sold on the top end and the bottom end, trying to, if it trades sideways, they'll win all those trades. But $938,000 collected, all in all, closing out little intraday trading and starting a couple of spreads, even though we don't have shares anymore. Reddit, I believe they went up pretty big after hours. So they were already up $11 on, or 7.5%. Yeah, good thing they closed these out and rolled them, though, because they went up another 16% in the after hours. So they would have been even more expensive tomorrow. But the close and roll, they actually still rolled within the same week. Let's see, they sold 175s for tomorrow. It's sitting at 186 after hours, so they're going to end up getting hurt on that one as well. But $4.3 million loss on that. Rigetti selling more options and buying more puts to go with the new shares, $201,000 collected. SMCI closing and rolling to next week, having to roll up by $7. That cost us $619,000. New Scale Power and Snap Inc. selling new calls and buying new puts to go with the new shares, collecting $315,000 and $88,000. Vertiv Holdings, this is a close and roll to next week. Again, rolling up and out, up from 142 to 155. Cost us 3.6, almost $3.7 million. And Vistra Corp closing out those 200s and selling 21750s for next week, cost us $3.7 million. So it was a rough trading day. All in all, resulted in a negative 24 million and change. As you can see, that generally goes with a increase, and today that is the case. So when we go to the holdings, we'll start at the beginning. Applied Optoelectronics was down 0.82%. They went ahead and rolled their further out of the money positions. They still have 26s expiring next week that are 13.6% out of the money. All the way on the right, I won't read through them, but you'll see changes in market value based on the share increases or decreases. AppLovin up 7.5%. They went ahead and rolled the in the money position and the puts associated with them. They still have 400s that are sold for next week that are 2.3% out of the money. AST Space Mobile down a little over 2%. They've got 55s in play for tomorrow that are 3.4% out of the money. Bitmine Immersion Technology down 0.29%. 2% out of the money on the 35s and 13% out of the money on the 39s. They expire 2 weeks from tomorrow. Webull, we just added this the other day, up 1.72%, 14.19. They're 9% out of the money on those 1550s that expire next Friday. Coinbase up a fraction. What was it? 28 cents on a $370 stock. So not much change there. They've got 405s, 410s, and 415s all expiring tomorrow. They are all 7, 8, and 9% out of the money. Looking like we'll be closing them out pretty cheap tomorrow for the roll. First Solar down almost 2.5%. We've got 192.50s and 195s expiring tomorrow that are 10 and 11% out of the money. Galaxy Digital down 1.6%. We're 5.5% out of the money on those 30s expiring tomorrow. Robinhood was down 2.87%. They went ahead and rolled the further out of the money position, the 113s. They still have 107s in play for tomorrow that are 3.8% out of the money. InnoData was the big winner today, up 13.2%. Look at that change in market value, $12 million increase. That did take their 50s that are expiring 2 weeks from now, way in the money. So they went ahead and rolled them out up to a higher strike. They've still got 55s in play for 2 weeks from now that are just barely out of the money, 10 cents out of the money. IonQ down 0.05% or 2 cents. They've got 45s and 47s expiring for next week. They're 12.9 and 17.9% out of the money. Mara Holdings down 2.84%. They've got 1750s and 18s all expiring next week, 8.8 and almost 12% out of the money. So we do have a good handful that have already been rolled to next week. Meta Platforms, we sold the shares, closed out the positions. It was up 11.25% today, and I think it was even more than that. So it'll all come out in the wash, but we got a better increase than that because 773.44 is what it closed at. But when we sold the shares, we got 783. So we got $10 more a share than the closing price. So that worked out well for us, 11%, and it wasn't even our best one for the day. So that's not bad. MicroStrategy up almost 1.75%. We got 420s and 422.50s still in play for tomorrow. They're 4.5% and 5% out of the money. Nebius Group up 6.12%. They rolled the positions that went into the money. They still have 54.50s in play for tomorrow. They're 0.13% out of the money or 7 cents. Oklo up a little over 1%. Both positions are in the money. They rolled the deeper one. They still have 75s that are 1.8% in the money that are still in play for tomorrow. Palantir down 0.16%. We have 162.50s that are in play for tomorrow, 2.62% out of the money, so they're still looking good. And then we've got 160s and 162.50s again for next week, 1 and 2.6% out of the money. Qualcomm was the biggest loser of the day, down 7.73%. Let's see if we got better than the closing price, 146.76, 147.88. So they did sell at better prices than what they closed at. Obviously, closed out and rolled these positions, but we did start a put spread and a call spread on them. So we'll see all that tomorrow when we download the holdings. Reddit up almost 8%. Took our 155s and 160s in the money. They rolled the deeper ones. The 160s are still 0.7% out of the money. And then we also have 165s, 2.4% out of the money. Still need to be rolled tomorrow. Rigetti Computing up 2.33%. We've got 1550s and 16s for next week and the week after, 6.9 and 10.3% out of the money. SMCI down 2.87%. Kind of curious why they rolled these, but they were out of the money, expiring tomorrow. Did we at least win on that trade? No. So the next question will be, did SMCI kind of change direction throughout the day? Yeah. Okay. So if you look at it, right, here's our break even. So the stock's taken off a good bit above where the day started. So 62.14. We had 60, so they probably started looking real bad. They rolled them, and then the stock came back down all the way below it. So nobody's got a crystal ball. We won't hold that one against them. They've got 55s sold that are 6.7% in the money for next Friday. And then they have purchased, they have a debit call spread where they bought 60s and sold 70s. And in that case, those 60s, we want them to go in the money, and they are 1.75% out of the money. New Scale Power down 0.59%. 54s still in play for tomorrow, 7.5% out of the money. 56s for next week are 11.5% out of the money. Snap Inc. up over 1%. 1050s expiring next Friday are 11.5% out of the money. Tempest AI down 2.11%. 9.5% out of the money on those 62s. They expire next Friday though. Upstart Holdings down 1.9%. I can't wait till we close some of these out. We've got 8 different options opened here. 84s, 85s, and 87s all sold for this week are 2.7, call it 4, and 6.4% out of the money. And then we've even got 90s sold for next week that are 10% out of the money. This is our ETF UVIX, 2 times long VIX futures, up 0.82%. These are sold till the 15th. We've got 20s sold calls that are 15.74% out of the money. Then they've sold puts as well, $14 puts. They're 18, call it 19% out of the money. And then we have purchased puts. These are protecting our shares, and they're at 7.4%. So they've got a different strategy than usual. If you just ignore this middle line for a second, it's our normal collar strategy. So it's our collar strategy, and then they just added selling $14 puts just to collect a little extra. Vertiv Holdings up a little over 1%. They rolled the 142s that were in the money. They still have 148s in play for tomorrow. They're 1.6% out of the money. And then Vistra Corp up 0.75%. They had 200s for this week and next week. The ones, they're obviously both in the money. The ones for this week got rolled. Next week's are still in play, 4% out of the money. They also have 2 10s and 2 1750s sold. So if I don't specify, I'm always talking about calls that are sold, 0.67 and 4.2% out of the money. All of that increases and decreases for everything in the underlyings combined for a $28.8 million increase in value. More money came into the fund yesterday. 24 million shares were added to our outstanding shares. So yesterday we were just shy of 400 million. Now we're already at 422 million outstanding shares. We're over the $2.5 billion mark for the assets under management. And Ulti closed around 614. We do have an 80+% weighted average IV on the fund. So even though stock's down, or the share price is down a little from recently, it's kind of hitting right around where a lot of us in the chat have been talking about our average. So, all right, next we will switch to LFGY. We get through them a little faster. There's about half as many stocks or funds within the fund, and we don't have to go through all the trades. So if we've got things like Bitmine, right, they're closing out 19 contracts. They've got 992, right? So when we have situations like that, a lot of the time, I don't highlight them. So I'm just going to tell you when like a full position got closed out and rolled. So starting off with CleanSpark, closed out their 1250s and 1350s and sold 1250s for next week. I'm pretty sure they're, yep. Resulted in a $2,400 profit. Not that big of a deal. Circle Internet Group, closing out those 215s. They've been dropping lately. Sold 192.50s for next week. And then closed out a small portion of them for some reason. $108,000 credit. GameStop, it's not a large position, but it is a full line, so that's why I highlighted it. Closed out their 2450s and actually didn't even sell to open them, so I'm not sure what they're doing there, but $200 loss. Robinhood, closing and rolling, $133,000 profit. Mercado Libre, this is the full position, even though it's only 33 contracts, but that's because each share costs $2,400. So this is just our normal roll. Out to next week, $86,000 profit. NU Holdings closing and rolling, paying a penny to close out, collecting about 32 cents a share on the new sales. Almost $124,000 credit. PayPal, closing those 70s that are sold for next week and selling. That doesn't even make sense. So we bought to close 72s. I don't even know what we're doing. Getting myself confused. Either way, we sold 766 contracts of calls for next week at 70. Then we bought back to close some of them. And bought to close some of our 72 puts. But then the selling, I don't know. This is confusing. $78,000 debit. Sometimes, especially if you're got yourself on recording, your brain stops working. So if that's making more sense to you guys, hopefully it does. XYZ, closing out 82s and 83s. Nope. Closing 82s, selling 83s, and closing 83s. Closing 82s and 83s for this week, selling 83s for next week. Sorry about all that. $110,000 profit. So all in all, resulted in a $469,000 credit on the trading day. As we go through the shares, Bitmine down 0.29%. They are 45% out of the money. I'm getting real tempted to start selling options on these guys. The amount of premium they get being 40 and 50% out of the money. But their shares are sold. Their options are out till August 15th, so we still got a little while on them. BitDeer down 1.45%. 1450s and 16s are sold for this week, 12.5% and 24% out of the money. And then they also have 1450s that are 12.5% out of the money sold for the following week. CleanSpark down 4.44%. They took the win on the further out of the money positions. They still have much more. As you can see, 6,400 contracts at 12.50, 10% out of the money expiring tomorrow. Now, LFGY is a little different than Ulti won in the strategy, right? They don't do a collar strategy. They most of the time do a call strategy or a credit call strategy or a credit call spread strategy. Don't know where I was going with that. Oh, but also sometimes they will let things just go to expiration if they're out of the money as opposed to paying to close them. So sometimes they'll go into the weekend, leaving them so they'll just expire. Coinbase up a couple cents, right? 28 cents, 0.07%. They're 11% out of the money on those 420s expiring tomorrow. Core Scientific up 3.72%. They've got 14, 1450, and 15s. And 14s for the following week. 3.47% out of the money, and then again 3.4% out of the money for next week. Circle Internet Group down 3.66%. As I'm going through, I think I just realized I didn't find the biggest winner and the biggest loser. So we'll be able to find it real quick. 7% increase is the biggest winner. Is Circle the biggest loser with 3.66%. It is. All right, so Circle, big loser over here on LFGY. They rolled the positions, took the win, closed them out for pennies. Ethereum, ETF, ETHA. Somebody asked a question about them in the comments the other day. Down 0.75%. 9.6% out of the money expiring tomorrow with those 31s. Galaxy Digital down 1.66%. We've got 32s expiring tomorrow that are over 12% out of the money, and 30s for the following week that are 5.5% out of the money. GameStop ended the day even. So they still closed out their 2450s, small position. They still have 24s in play for tomorrow that are 6.9% out of the money. Robinhood down 2.87%. They rolled all positions, so we don't need to talk about them. Hut 8 Corp up 7.11%. You'd think it would have a bigger impact than 550,000. They're about 4% of our holdings. Luckily, we were able to take that increase without it blowing through our strikes. We've got 2150s and 2250s sold. They're still 1.2 and 5.9% out of the money. IBIT shares, we don't sell options, so they went down 0.08% and just a $14,000 decrease in value. Mara Holdings down 2.84%. I believe these have already been rolled till next week. They have. So we've got 1750s and 1850s sold for next week that are 8.8 and 15% out of the money. MBTX had a small decrease. These shares don't expire. These options don't expire until the 15th. They have a credit call spread where the sold calls are at 295, 6.8% out of the money. And then they have a debit put spread where the purchased puts are at 230, 16.7% out of the money. We want them to go in the money in order for that trade to do well. So that's why they're blue, because when they go in the money, red looks bad. And in a debit spread situation, in the money would be good. Mercado Libre down 0.31%. We talked about it. There was only 33 contracts because it costs so much per share. So they rolled all these positions. We're now ready for next week. MicroStrategy up 1.73%. We've got 430s and 435s sold for tomorrow, 7 and 8.25% out of the money. NU Holdings down 3.17%. All positions were rolled. Nvidia down 0.78%. We've got 185s expiring tomorrow, 4% out of the money. Opera up 3.24%. 1750s and 20s sold for next week. There's no long calls to go with them. They're 5.6 and 20.7% out of the money. I think I said next week. I meant 2 weeks from now. PayPal Holdings down 1.36%. They went ahead and rolled the positions here. This was a put spread, though, not a... Is that why I got confused? Did we talk about PayPal? That's why it was so confusing. Okay, so we have a put spread sold on them where we sold the 72s and purchased the 70s. Since the stock went down beyond both, they just closed them out. Started a new position. For some reason, my brain's not working, so I won't sit there and put you through that a second time. But that's why that one didn't make sense. But it looks like we're going to have some calls, right? Because we did sell calls for next week at 70. We purchased some of them back. That's what it is. And then we purchased calls further out and then sold some of them back. And then we closed out that put spread. So we had a put spread on it. We are back to having a call spread on it when we download the holdings tomorrow. There we go. Sorry, that took me some time. Riot Platforms down 0.8%. 15s and 1550s are still in play till tomorrow, 11.8 and 15.5% out of the money. And finally, Block down 0.39%. Did I forget to color this in? I thought, yeah, we said that these got rolled. So these positions were rolled. We don't need to talk about them. Okay, all of that resulted in a $411,000 decrease in value for the fund. We did have more shares, more money come into the fund, 50,000 shares worth. We're now up to 5,175,000 outstanding shares, still in that mid 190s for 190 million assets under management. So we can't seem to break that 200 million mark even when money's coming in. So quick recap, right? Tomorrow is payday on your funds. So as far as Ulti is concerned, you're getting a little over 10 cents a share. We lost $24 million trading today, but we increased in value by $28 million. And again, LFGY, we had a profit of $469,000 trading today, but we decreased in value by $411,000. You'll be getting 47.37 cents per share deposited in your account tomorrow. And all that leaves left is the dad joke of the day. So before I do, thank you very much for watching. All the comments, everybody in the live chat, I appreciate people sharing. Right? If you are into other stuff, I don't just do Ulti and LFGY. I do 0 DTE videos for Roundhill. I do individual income funds, a bunch of the bigger ones that Retire on Dividends doesn't cover. I do that video once a week on Saturday. I keep getting comments asking me about my trades, so I'm guessing people didn't notice, but every weekend I post a video that kind of looks like that, and it's my personal trades that I made for the week. And then once in a while I'll just do something random, like talk about Granite shares releasing COYY. I did see that they also already announced the first distribution, and it was 180% annual yield. So if you got in them right off the bat, congratulations. But okay, that's it. Dad joke of the day. I don't get why bakers aren't wealthier. They make so much dough. I heard a chuckle from the other room, so somebody in the house thinks I'm funny. Okay, everybody, have a good night. Good luck trading tomorrow. If you've got options open, don't forget it's the last day, so you got to get those things closed out or rolled. And have a good night. See you in tomorrow's video.